Good day. I'm Dr Noor. I'm a medical doctor and a biochemist, and I'm the author of Document X, Direct Evidence of God's Existence. Let's talk about gravity from a Quranic perspective. Now, gravity is one of the four fundamental forces of nature. It fashioned and shaped the large-scale structure of the universe. It drives the planets, the stars, and galaxies in their orbits. It is at the heart of the celestial motion throughout the universe. Newton formulated this universal law of gravity in the 17th century, and this allows us to, for example, determine the orbital motion of planets, determine the shape of the orbit, and predict the trajectory of things. And this proved crucially important in space exploration. So gravity had many practical applications and was considered a triumph for science, and it held sway for about 2 centuries until a flaw was exposed in 1860s, when it was realized that Newton's understanding of gravity could only account for 99.5% of the orbital motion of Mercury, which is the inner planet of the solar system. This might sound like a small discrepancy, but scientists consider it large enough to warrant a new theory. Gravity also made these wonderful predictions, but failed to supply us with a plausible mechanism as to how it actually works. I mean, how does the sun reach out millions of kilometers into space and affects the orbital motion of the Earth? There was another problem with gravity. According to Newton, gravity acts instantaneously fast. From an Einsteinian perspective, light is the fastest traveling signal. Now, reconciliation became possible when Einstein described gravity in a radically new way. Gravity wasn't some mysterious force acting instantaneously over large distances, but was actually curved space-time. Now, to understand this idea, we first have to look at space. Now, when I refer to space, I am referring to those regions above the Earth, between the planets, between the stars, between galaxies. For centuries, space was considered vast tracts of emptiness, regions of eternal darkness. It was a fixed permanent entity in which the cosmic drama is playing itself out. Now, with the advent of quantum mechanics and Einstein's general theory of relativity, space was redefined. Space was now considered to be a dynamic concept. Space could stretch. It's, for example, the stretching of intervening space between galaxies that's pushing it apart. Space can bend, space can distort, it can shrink, and so on. Space also has precise geometrical features. Even on a microscopic scale, space is far from inactive. There are wild energy fluctuations, field changes, countless particles popping in and out of existence. And then there's the important, inextricable link between space and time. We are trapped in a three-dimensional space, corresponding to forward, backward, sideways, and up and down movement. Moving to three-dimensional space also means moving through one-dimensional time. Scientists therefore combine with good reason three-dimensional space with one-dimensional time into a four-dimensional space-time structure. Now, with this modest understanding of space, we can now proceed and see if we can simplify the way Einstein viewed gravity. Now, according to Einstein, as I said earlier, gravity is not some mysterious attractive force, but it's actually the manifestation of curved space-time. Now, four-dimensional space-time is difficult to visualize, so we're going to simplify matters by suppressing two dimensions, and we assume space-time is two-dimensional, like a flat rubber sheet. Now, consider a soccer ball and a marble to represent the sun and a planet. Now, you place the soccer ball in the center of the sheet, of the rubber sheet, and it will cause a dip in the center. Remove the soccer ball and space-time is once again flat. If you move a marble across, it will follow a straight line. Now repeat the experiment and place the soccer ball back in the middle of the rubber sheet. And now roll the marble towards the soccer ball. It will follow a curved trajectory in the indentation caused by the soccer ball until it comes to rest as a result of frictional forces. By the way, in space there are no frictional forces, so motion will continue. Astronomical bodies like the sun and the moon, they do the same to real space-time. They curve and distort it. For example, the sun curves or warps surrounding space, and this causes a deflection in the motion of planets from their straight path, which they otherwise would have followed if space-time was flat. So what planets feel or experience, or rather what they are subservient to, is not an attractive gravitational force, but rather the curvature or the warping of space caused by the sun. So the sun warps surrounding space, driving the planets in their curved tracks. And the same principle applies to the Earth, which warps surrounding space, maintaining the orbital motion of the moon. The same principle applies to the other celestial bodies. Now let's look at space, the Newtonian concept of gravity, and the Einsteinian concept of gravity. Let's start off with space. In chapter 2, verse 22, the Quran states, "He it is who made the earth habitable for you, and made space around it a structure, a protective canopy, and sent down rain from this region of space." Now the key word here is sama, which is the Arabic word. It's a word which can mean different regions of space in the universe. Now the Quran always specifies the region of space which is being referred to. In this case, for example, on a macroscopic scale, heavenly space refers here to space around the earth, and it's meant to be the atmosphere for the following reasons. It speaks about heavenly space being a structure. The atmosphere is a structure consisting of layers put together in a very organized way. Space also is the area where rain is generated, in other words, where climatic condition takes place, and this obviously happens in the atmosphere. And then the atmosphere or space is described as a protective shield or canopy. And this is very appropriate since we know the atmosphere protects us against lethal cosmic radiation, the harmful ultraviolet rays, space objects from the sky, and wild energy or wild climatic conditions. On a microscopic scale, space is not considered to be fundamental. It's thought to consist of micro constituents which are put together in an organized way. And this idea is built upon in the following two verses. In 51:7 it says, "By the heavenly space, the nature of which is a network or like a fabric." So if you can imagine countless thin wires running in different directions like a three-dimensional grid, this is one of Quranic perceptions of space. And another analogy forthcoming from this verse is to compare space to threads interwoven of a fabric. In other words, by suturing these tiny threads together, space emerges. Scientists speak about the fabric of space-time. In 86:11, it is stated that by the heavenly space, which is expanding and curving to return to its original state. Now this verse relates to the curved and expanding nature of space. The last verse I wish to quote concerning space is the following, in 50 verse 16, which says, "Do they, the skeptics, not then consider how we've built space and decorated it, and it has no gaps?" So space here is considered a framework requiring construction, which supports chapter 2, verse 22, quoted earlier. Then the second part of the verse speaks about the decoration of space. Now there are several verses in the Quran which refer to the motion of celestial bodies in space. So this verse means how we've decorated space with celestial bodies moving along their measured pathways. And the last part of the verse says space has no gaps. Now it's impossible to find a volume of space anywhere in the universe which is completely empty. As we said earlier, space is a dynamic concept filled with microscopic activity, countless particles popping in and out of existence, wild energy fluctuations. A quantum cosmologist once remarked that the most powerful statement you can make about space is that it has no gaps. Now let's look at how the Quran described gravity from a Newtonian perspective. In chapter 77:25, the Quran asked a rhetorical question. Have we not made the earth draw to itself the living and the non-living? Now the earth may be considered to represent matter, and this matter exerts a gravitational or a kind of attractive force. The Arabic word for gravity here means a drawing force, a grip or a vice. Think about the gravitational grip. And this is actually a good description of gravity, because gravity is like a vice. Nothing can escape gravity. Everything is held in the grip of gravity. Then it speaks about affecting both living and non-living. So in other words, this verse gives us insight into the nature of gravity, its attractive quality, and its universal application. Now let us look how the Quran describes the Einsteinian perspective of gravity. Chapter 13 verse 2 states, "Your God is he who raises the celestial bodies with an invisible pillar, and is firmly established on the throne of authority. He has subjected the sun and the moon and all other celestial bodies to his gravitational laws, each pursuing a course for a term appointed in accordance with those laws. He governs everything that exists." Clearly does he spell out these messages, these scientific messages, that you may be certain that you are destined to meet your Creator. I've inserted the words gravitational laws for two reasons. These can be derived from 77:25, which refers to the drawing or attractive action of gravity, and 55 verse 5, which relates the mathematical nature of gravity. In this verse, gravity is viewed as an unseen pillar, a kind of a invisible universal phenomenon, since the motion of celestial bodies are influenced by it throughout the universe. Now it is striking, whereas gravity is described as an attractive force as perceived by Newton in the Quran, the description of gravity as an invisible pillar or as a support structure in this verse, in 13 verse 2, is more in tune with Einstein's perspective of gravity. Now, to appreciate this remarkable prediction, we have to consider other verses. 55 verse 5 informs us that the sun and the moon follow pathways exactly computed. In other words, celestial bodies move in obedience to precise mathematical laws, which are none other than the laws of gravity. So if gravity and motion is connected and time and motion is linked, as mentioned in chapter 10 verse 5, it follows that gravity must be connected to time. But the same verse, that is 10 verse 5, expresses the inextricable link between space and time. But in 86:11, the Quran refers to curved space-time. And in chapter 21, 104, it speaks about the future of the universe, where space-time will be rolled up, curved around on itself. In other words, space-time is curved. So combining these verses, gravity can therefore be understood to be curved space-time. And this is exactly what Einstein's theory of relativity is all about, describing gravity as the physical manifestation of curved space-time. So planets do not move in their orbits in accordance with gravitational laws, but is guided by the unseen hand of curved space-time. And this is the essence of general theory of relativity of Einstein. The next part of the verse in chapter 13 verse 2 states that the celestial bodies run their courses for an appointed term in accordance with gravitational laws. So gravity determines the lifespan of celestial bodies. We know, for example, that the planets, they move in their orbits around the sun, and as they do so, they emit gravitational waves with a resultant loss of energy. And so they spiral ever closer and closer towards the sun, and eventually will collide into the sun. But fortunately, this will only happen in a very far, far, far distant future. So that other phenomena where gravity also plays a role are more likely to come into play well before then. For example, our sun, a few billion years from now, will suffer an energy crisis. Overpowering gravitational forces will cause the sun to blow up like a distended balloon, and this signals the demise of the beginning of the sun. Celestial objects whose life is not ended by local catastrophes will eventually be destroyed by this rapidly shrinking cosmic mass. The universe towards the end will exert powerful gravitational forces, destroying everything in its path. So gravity, which played such a crucial role in the origin of the universe, will also become the undertaker of the universe. Towards the end of the verse, it is stated that God is firmly established in the throne of authority, and he governs everything that exists. Could mean that he governs everything in accordance with gravity. Just as celestial bodies are obedient to gravitational laws, so is everything else. There's not a single particle in the entire universe that is not affected by gravity. In the last part of the verse, it makes a metaphysical statement. It speaks about meeting God in the hereafter. According to the Quran, science is an integral aspect of religion. By contemplating the futuristic knowledge of science, of the scientific verses in the Quran, in this case gravity, should convince the sincere truth seeker of the divine origin of the Quran, and hence that he is to meet his Creator in the life beyond death.